Hey, what's up guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. A Return to School, Tensura x COTE, by Asuryii. Chapter 9. Of course I should make a simple test a competition. Currently, I am at an impasse. I need to show the president something interesting. This is a very open situation. It should be simple. I just need to in a sense show merit worth my evaluation or surpass that. But therein lies the issue. I know I am highly rated by the SCP, but I don't know how high. Say he rates me on his level as an equal. Then the lengths I must go are farther than say he rates me as a student with high potential. Even if I think back to what he said at the fair, befitting of the highest rated first year and newest student council member. Taken at face value, it makes it clear that my rating in the president's eyes is high, but that isn't how it should be taken. From our interactions, I know he has a favorable impression of me. He has shown that he actively wishes to see the limits of my abilities and see how far I intend to go. This, however, does little to tell me how high he has rated me. Up until now, his choice of words all mentioned ratings I was given by others, not him. He's leaving me second guessing. But I do have no reason to mire in my thoughts and muddle over such details. I can stay curious and confused about how the president rates me, but having an answer and not having one changes a little. I need to impress the president. I've made it clear that 100s are supposed to be my norm, so getting a 100 means nothing. Now a 100 plus is a different story. That is something that would be impressive to most, but I feel it's not enough. I assume I can buy a point on my tests to reach that score, but it feels boring. It has no extremely impressive detail. After the fair, I was informed by Fuka that the first years would likely have a swimming class. This was an absent-minded rambling on her part, however. She likely didn't intentionally mean to share this detail with me, but like before she came to ANHS, she took it upon herself to call me every night to ramble. Now that I was here at ANHS, she ultimately decided that she once again wished to talk my ears off. Not that I am complaining, but sometimes she talks for far too long. Or fails to realize she has brought up a topic most people are uncomfortable with. No, she's doing that on purpose, but her absent-minded late-night ramblings are a habit she formed over the years we knew each other. It seriously surprised me when she first started calling me nightly like this, but I quickly got used to it and it became a daily interaction. I wonder if I could turn this into a class competition of some sort. That's it. I want to turn this into a class competition and make Kyo get extra attention. I guess I know what I want to do, but how do I go about this? I doubt Mishima-sensei has the capabilities to change the scale of the swimming class, but Director Sakayanagi does. Now comes the question. How can I get in contact with the director? Maybe Mishima-sensei? This is easier than it sounds. I doubt it'd be so easy to contact the director. Maybe I will get in contact with the school president, not SCP. No, it'd probably be easier to talk to Sakayanagi. One, he knows me. And two, I'm more confident that I could make contact with him having fewer issues than I could the president. Guess I'll call Mishima-sensei and ask how I can contact the director. If it's possible, I will likely have to spend points. Letting out a sigh, I pulled out my phone and called Mishima-sensei. It would be convenient if I could make contact with the director easily, but I wasn't too hopeful. Rimuru. What do I owe the pleasure of this call? I wasn't expecting a call from you, but if you have a question and it can't wait till tomorrow, I would be happy to answer. After 3 rings, Mishima-sensei answered the call. He spoke in a curious and warm tone. He was a man passionate about teaching and nurturing future generations, but he was also a good man who was willing to listen to his students' worries and answer questions. Of course, only ones he was allowed to answer. I apologize for bothering you after classes for the day have already ended, Mishima-sensei. I just had a question regarding a curiosity of mine. You said we could purchase anything on the campus grounds. Of course, I assumed that meant within reason, but I digress. If it's possible, I'd like to buy the phone number of Director Sakayanagi. I wish to speak with him regarding tomorrow's swimming class. I didn't want to take more of his time than necessary, so I refrained from unnecessary conversation. If it wasn't possible to do such a thing, then I would move on and leave the conversation there. Either way, Mishima-sensei's answer would satiate my curiosity. If he said yes, then I would try to ask for even more absurd requests in the future. If he said no, then I still would, but I would take a more conservative stance in the direction I go with testing the S-system's depths. A yes would mean I knew a question I would ask further into the future. How many points must I pay to expel or rescind a student's expulsion? That or the cost to change a student's class? Those would be questions I want to learn the answers to. 200,000 points to get Director Sakayanagi's contact information. Mishima-sensei had no hesitation in his response. This lack of delay left me with a single thought. Prices for various commodities, utilities, and privileges were set in stone beforehand. They weren't arbitrarily decided. Deal. Do I send the points to you directly, Mishima-sensei? Just send them to me. We'll both have a record of the payment. Once the points are sent, I will give you the director's contact. Whether he answers or not is something I cannot guarantee. How much to guarantee he'll answer? Or is this a case of he will answer if he's not busy? Just a matter of Director Sakayanagi's availability. Understood. Thank you, Mishima-sensei. You have transferred 200,000 private points to Mishima Tominari. Balance 1,350,450 private points, private. I've received the payment. Check your messenger for the contact to the director. Anything else you need to ask Rimuru? No, that'll be all. Thank you, Mishima-sensei. It was a pleasure doing business with you. Have a good night and see you tomorrow for class. Of course, have a good night, Rimuru. I wish you well. Ending the call, Mishima-sensei, I felt he sounded proud, but it could have been my imagination. Looking into my messages, I took note of the director's number, dedicating it to my memory just in case before I called the number. The line rang a few times before the line connected. Hi, Director Sakayanagi. I acquired your number from Mishima-sensei. I was wondering, I was going to make the director's night filled with a headache. I spent points to acquire this contact. I was going to make it worth my while. I'd succeed in changing the course of tomorrow's swimming course, whether he liked it or not. After all, I am proud to say I am the biggest pain in the ass to negotiate or argue with. I don't like to compromise, so why do so when I know my goal is within arm's reach? A bit of peer pressure never hurts when negotiating. Blackmail, threats, also, both are good tactics to employ. We'll see how far I have to go this time. I still remember negotiating the placements of Yuki, Shuru, Kyo, and myself before. He didn't like the fact I made him deal with 4 balance breakers in a single year. But frankly, that's not my problem. It's his, and everyone else's. At least I wasn't rude as to make him destroy the class balance by putting more than one in a single class. Just the entire first year is a bigger threat than it should have been, that's all. Not too much of an issue. At least not to me. I do suppose my nature comes into play in this situation. I just can't resist a little bit of chaos. I pride myself in being the chaos creator. It's stuck with me. And I'm not one to let people's preconceptions or thoughts about me stay as just that. I do like to meet and exceed expectations. Just a bit more than I should in certain cases. But after all, therein lies the fun. The world can't live without some chaos. Maybe my desire to give Guy headaches had a deeper effect on my personality than I thought. Oh well, not my problem. I don't think there is a God. I prayed to never negotiate with Rimuru again, but here we are. Director Sakayanagi. The poor man wanted one thing, never to negotiate with Rimuru again. But here he is. Look where fate brought him. Back to me. Motherfucker. Rimuru, don't interrupt narration. Hey. You smug, Whatever, moving on. I think the narrator is done with Rimuru's shit. Hey Rimuru. Turning towards the sound of the voice, I was met by Hashimoto, who was a little too close for comfort for someone I met barely 2 days ago. Well, I'm sure my face didn't show it as I just smiled like normal, returning his greetings. Good morning, Hashimoto. You seem oddly energetic today. Is there a particular reason? In truth, I knew the reason. Every, almost, male in our year was energetic today. Did you hear that today we have a swimming lesson? But not only that. Apparently it was changed last minute to also be a class competition of sorts. Hashimoto seemed more invested in another idea to me rather than seeing the girls in swimsuits, but it wasn't my problem. Acting surprised, I played it off as if I didn't know how most of this situation came about, when in reality I did. I may have bullied. Negotiated with the director over the phone for a solid hour till he gave in. Sadly, I gained no new information from my bullying negotiating. But at least I can get a chance to fuck with Kyo, Shuru, and Koenji. Well, aside from that, this competition will serve as a good way to scout the other classes more effectively, and most of all, Create more connections. Who doesn't love having authority and influence? Getting more just makes you safer from attacks of certain forms, and creates a barrier to hide various actions in. There exist two main ways to gain information and power: directly and indirectly. Kyo opts for an indirect approach. Well, one so indirect that others don't even notice it. I prefer direct approaches but leave things done more indirectly. Simply put, make an ally, while at the same time acquiring a versatile pawn to be used for various tasks. Plus, the more out my public face is, the more protection and alibis I have in different situations. It makes it harder to snuff me out because even if you do, it doesn't matter. I already have 15 people to hold problems off for me. This lesson would serve as a meaningful way to create more connections. I say more connections, but I mean those outside of my class. I already have the number of all my classmates except Yahiko. The reason is simple. I don't need the contacts of someone I intend to get rid of. Faulty products and weak links must be cut off. He is one of them. Fate is cruel to have put him in the same class as me. Well, no, fate is kind. They put him in a class where he'll leave sooner rather than later, leaving him able to attend a new school sooner. I hadn't received all the details myself, but I did receive a message from the president late last night informing me of slight changes to the class today. I didn't expect it to become a class shared between our whole year, but it certainly seems like an enjoyable experience. I let my stare turn blank as I looked Hashimoto directly in the eyes before I spoke my next words, and like a good way to scout the competition. The blank look in my eyes made Hashimoto's face turn with a tinge of surprise and awareness. This was both at my words and my sudden shift in expression. The reason I did this was simple. I want to know Hashimoto's character. Who is he as a person? What are his tendencies? What would he be hiding? After all, everyone has something to hide, some more so than others. I agree with that statement. I look forward to seeing the strengths of the students we share our year with. Hashimoto paused for a second as we reached our class before he smirked slightly and turned back toward me. It also means we get to see the newest student council member and a student from our class in action. He's testing me. This just got a whole lot more interesting. Hashimoto, my friend, color me intrigued. You, sir, have my attention now. I think I'll have to pry your nature out of your head myself. Don't worry too much about that, Hashimoto. As a member of a class, and the newest member of this illustrious school's student council, I couldn't hope, or even dare to fail to meet the expectations of my fellow first years. Let alone my very own classmates, but I also hope that you won't disappoint me. Fuka, I heard what you did. I'll be expecting an explanation later. I'll be in your room tonight waiting for that and you to treat me. 7:45. Looking at the message I got from Fuka, I couldn't help but sigh. Couldn't she at least pretend to be nervous to go into a boy's room? Or maybe she could at least try to surprise me rather than announce her existence every time she does something. It would be nice if she just, I don't know, surprised me. She really is free-spirited. As a student council member, were you made aware of how this class will be run? Hashimoto opted to shift the direction of the conversation as it began closing in on suspicious territory. This action of his didn't surprise me all that much, but it did disappoint me. I was truly hoping he would come forward with a snarky or witty retort, but alas, he didn't. I quickly put aside my abject disappointment as I was keenly aware not everyone talked, let alone acted anything like Seal, Fuka, and Kyo. Those three truly have a peculiar way of interacting with others. It honestly has begun to warp my general conversational expectations. That doesn't go to say that other people I interact with aren't odd, particularly with how they react and respond to most queries and situations when compared to the vast majority of people. Planning to take up an argument with any of those three is more of a nightmare than anyone else. I don't mean I can't win an argument with them. I most certainly can. I just mean they can be very, very, very insistent on topics even if they're wrong. Even Koenji isn't that much of a pain in the ass. He is relatively simple to argue with. 1. Prove you're better than him. 2. Beat him at his own game. 3. Lay everything out for him in a way he can pretend he knew the answer from the start and was simply testing you. All three of these methods are the easiest ways to win an argument with Koenji. Fuka is the outlier of the three in the sense that she argues with you despite knowing she's wrong to piss you off. She likes to get a rise out of people. It's a bad habit of hers, but it can be enjoyable seeing her dismantle a person piece by piece, despite her knowing her side of the debate is incorrect. Kyo and Seal are similar in the fact that they always have a way to correct what they said, or you said to make them right, or you wrong. Of course that entails the simple way of beating them being, leaving no loose ends, and tying everything tightly. Or plain and simply make Kyo give up due to being too lazy. That sadly doesn't work on Seal. But the best way to deal with them is to make sure that they can't get an opinion out for as long as possible. That leaves you able to corner them provided you don't leave a single gap to exploit. With Kyo that isn't too big of an issue, it does get tiresome, but Seal, that is another story. I honestly would rather die than argue with her on a topic that can be comprehended with logic and calculations. Once it becomes intuition and feeling things out, then I stand a better chance, but either way, winning an argument with her still feels like losing. It's actually depressing. You feel a sense of elation and rejoice that you bested Seal, then you realize she wasn't trying for the last 12 hours you talked, but just wanted to waste your time because she could, or she wanted more knowledge, and you became her newest temporary teacher for some time. Maybe that's why I tend to bully other people in debates and negotiations, since I have had to deal with those three. But who knows? The locker room was bustling with activity as many boys rejoiced and praised God, me, for the blessing that their eyes would bear witness to. In all honesty, their excitement was off-putting in a way. It made me glad. Wait. Fuka took this class last year, and Ichika will take it next year, but this year Yuki takes it. Well, Shuru will likely be of the same thoughts as me. How many people will I bury today? I wonder. 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40? I will not tolerate a single male ogling at Yuki. She was like the cute little sister I had in the White Room. Also, she was the first female interested in Kyo-sai, as his older brother and her friend, and tend to support her pursuit. For my entertainment, of course, and a desire to see all of those I shared time with in the White Room happy and enjoying life. Even if such a thing is but a pipe dream one can dream. That is the gift of living in a human body. The ability to dream and wish for certain futures. Too bad Kyo is as dense as a fucking black hole. Welp, she has 3 years to bag Kyo if she wants him. I will silently, maybe not silently, support her in her endeavors. If of course she isn't interested in Kyo, then power to her, but I wouldn't mind her being my sister-in-law. That reminds me of when I had the desire to adopt Shuru as my other younger brother. I'm glad we found his family and they took him in, but I do silently desire at times to know what it would be like to have not one, but two, emotionally stunted younger brothers. Kyo is an adorable specimen at times. I remember seeing him stick his hand in a metal bottle and pretend it was a rocket-powered gauntlet for all of 5 seconds. I have that shit ingrained into my memories as a core memory. It was adorable seeing the childish desires well up in him for a moment, then it was fucking hysterical when he realized his hand was stuck. I wish I caught a photo, but he just opted to rip it off his hand, dislocating his thumb in the process before I could take a photo to tease him with. Truly a sad day. I missed out. I know Mom would have loved to see that. Too bad, truly too bad. Just don't check the wallpaper on Rimuru's phone. He's a fucking liar. He got that shit. That's the reason Kyo tore the bottle off his hand, to prevent him from procuring any more blackmail material. Changing into some proper mail, nice try. You know who you are, swimwear. I felt a chill run down my spine, oddly enough. Pulling up the swim shorts, I looked around to see a group of my classmates staring at me, jaws slack. What are you looking at? You look like you saw a ghost. Close your mouth before the bugs fly in. Turning away from my classmates, I closed the locker and sat waiting for the call for us boys to exit the locker room. King. Men, we found our king. Who knew we'd find them this early in the year? How can he? There is no way. I didn't even want to know. I bet Katsuragi is bigger. Let's ignore that. Wait, bigger? Who the fuck measuring cocks out here? Why? Brains, muscles, and that behemoth. Life truly isn't fair, at all. Agreed. So King, you intend to take first place in the swimming competitions? Looking up, I was met with a face I didn't want to see on Hashimoto after this situation. Why do you look so proud? No, never mind, don't answer that. To answer your questions, I intend to take the gold, yes. Calm down, King. No need to treat this as the Olympics. Be careful though. You may end up with some aerodynamic issues. Why are you calling me King, Hashimoto? I already knew the answer, but to satiate my curiosity I asked anyway to confirm my suspicions. I'm sure you already understand, King. I could only sigh at Hashimoto's words as he confirmed my suspicions. Suit yourself. It didn't bother me. I was used to being called things similar to king, but the context was just different. To answer your question from before, Hashimoto, this is how the swimming competition will work. The locker room calmed down again as everyone listened intently to my explanation. Despite none of them being aware of most of the school's hidden truths, they still held the desire to prove that Class A was the best. I could get behind this. I like people with drive and determination. This was the basic structure of the competition. Each class would be divided into males and females. The males would compete with the males and the females with the females. They would race freestyle to see who was the fastest swimmer in the class. The fastest male and female would receive 5,000 private points for winning. The last 4 in each class would have supplementary lessons, for a total of 16 people. Then after the 4 classes finished the competitions, all classes would come together for a larger competition for more points. Once all the classes were together, the second round would start. This second round would be set between the fastest males and females of each class. Though this time the first and second place for each gender, in each class would be competing. So 8 boys and 8 girls. It would stay separate for now, boys versus boys and girls versus girls. This time the top 4 boys and top 4 girls would advance to round 3. The 8 students who move on would receive 15,000 private points each. For round 3 it will be 2 girls and 2 boys competing together. This round would decide the candidates for the second to semifinals. The top 4 move on to the semifinals, and boys who move on to the semis receive 25,000 private points, while girls would receive 30,000. The 4th round changes the rules a bit once more. For every race prior the distance was 50 meters, for the semis the distance is doubled to 100 meters. The finalists are decided after finding the top 2. The current number 1 receives 35,000 private points and the second place receives 30,000. Then comes the final round between the top 2 placers. This race is a 200 meters race, doubling the distance for the final race, but it comes with the added rule that you must change swimming styles every 50 meters. The winner of this race gets points depending on the place they had in the semifinals. If first place wins, they get 55,000 private points, and if second place wins, they receive 70,000 private points. If a girl receives either of these places, they win an additional 30,000 points. Special rules: in the event of a tie, the students must perform a tiebreaker. The tiebreaker is a chicken fight, shoulder fight, 3 rounds. Each student from the tie must choose a classmate whose shoulders they will sit on, and additionally, they must choose a pair from another class to support them. The winner is determined by who can remain atop the shoulders of their partner while knocking the opponent off their teammate's shoulders. The students are given 3 options for items to support them in the fight. The first is a pool noodle for the student trapped in the tiebreaker. The second is a floaty that the teammate of the student in the tiebreaker can pull their classmate on as opposed to sitting on their shoulders, and the third is a volleyball. The volleyball has special rules. If it hits the opponent in the face, the thrower wins. If the person the ball is thrown at catches the ball, or a teammate, or a crowd member, the round is reset. In the case the ball is dropped, that person is not affected as long as it doesn't hit their face. However, if the ball hits the water, it is fair play and the rules change. Catching the ball no longer ends the game, but adversely failing a catch results in a loss. Typical dodgeball rules. Aside from these details, the first-year student body cannot know exists as a part of the competition. Rules: Rimuru doesn't know the place the swimmers in each class get earns the class points. Final placement points. First 100 points, second 50 points. Third 30 points, fourth 20 points. Loss in a tiebreaker. Lose 100 points, dropout. Lose 100 points, win in a tiebreaker. 50 points, moving on to the next round. First negate 50-point value for each class, aside from said student's class. Second negate 20-point value for classes aside from first placer. Third negate 20-point value for classes aside from first and second placer. Fourth negate 10-point value from classes aside from first, second, and third. Final ruling. The class with the most PP earn negate 50-point value for all classes and gain an additional 20 points. Special privilege class representative will be asked how they wish to use negate point values. Changes ruling for all negate points. They can use the negate point value as intended and subtract points from other classes, or trade negate points to prevent points being negated from their class. The class rep is determined based on who ranked the highest in the class on most recent test scores. The class with the second most PP earned no changes, neutral. The class with the second least PP earned lose 20% of earned class points during the competition. The class with the least PP earned lose 20% of earned class points during the competition, and an additional 20 class points. Final ruling special note: any bets made count towards this point count. If you lose 100k private points in a bet, your class loses that value, and the other class gains it. But only for points earned during the competition. If a student bets 50,000 PP but only wins 20,000, the class loses 20,000, not 50,000. Private points earned in round 1 are not calculated in the score calculation. Final ruling special note: 2. The class reps will not be informed what these point values mean. It will be presented to them as a math query as so. 100 points, 200 negate points, minus 340 points. The points earned will be stated, then the negated value they have, and last the points they owe. Classes can go into a negative value. In the example above, the class would owe 40 points, which will be subtracted from the first month end evaluation after the tabulation of class points. Think of negate value like this: each class will earn negate point value, which takes away from class points earned. However, the first place in PP earnings can use the points to prevent the loss of points from their class or make other classes lose points. This doesn't mean they control the value, more so they can choose or be. Any negative value over the class points a class owes, in this case, are added to the final score, otherwise points work as they were intended by prior ruling. After finishing my explanation of the rules for the competition, I answered a few questions my classmates had before the teacher and proctors for today's competition called us out. I didn't tell my classmates one detail: in return for getting a class competition out of Director Sakayanagi, I traded our free time after the pre-planned activity, which now is round 1 of the competition. Coincidentally, sacrifices must be made, not like most people will care. The girls won't have to worry about being ogled as much, and everyone gets a class competition. Fight me if you think I ruined this class for everyone. I intend to get first place in this competition, so I need to preserve my stamina as much as possible. I doubt I'll be tired even if I don't, but you can never be too safe. Besides, if Kyo tries, I know I'll have some competition. Aside from him, Shuru and Yuki could go on to the final rounds. Considering Kyo's tendencies, I see the competition being me, Shuru, Yuki, and maybe Koenji. There could be an upset, but I highly doubt it. Now, if this was school-wide, the 4th position would be much, much more ambiguous and unpredictable. Though even in that case, I see the 4th person from what I know being either the president, Fuka, or Nagumo. I don't know much about Nagumo, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he is as much as people said he is, or that he is worthy of being the president's rival.